Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. I'm going to start every video around this show this way and go my non-spoiler review for episode 2, Star Spangled Man. I gotta apologize, man. I really undersold it. I love that episode so much. I've gone back and rewatched it now 3 times. It's so good. And the thing I love about this show is just the layers that it has going on storyline-wise. But while I may have undersold how good the content we got was last week, I still don't necessarily feel completely wrong about wishing that we would have gotten some other stuff. A bunch of that other stuff I was wanting and looking for last week, we got a whole lot of it this week. The old Seaman, he's very happy with what we got, and I'm just happy in general, because this show is really, really good. So why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat, we are getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 3, The Power Broker. And like I said, man, what they're doing from a story level and just the way that this show layers itself with its superhero content that's right up front and center, like we get with all of Marvel stuff. But when you look behind that curtain, man, the subplots and just the different contexts of the show that they're talking about and pulling from is really, really layered. Like I said, man, it's fascinating to watch how they're orchestrating and telling the story in general. And you have to just give so much props to Malcolm Spellman, who's the head writer here. Like I said, you watch these episodes, specifically on the rewatches, you really can feel the impact of a writer if what they're doing is strong. And what Spellman's doing here as the head writer in this writer's room is really impressive to just watch, like I said, how they're layering things and just attacking all the stuff they're attacking. And specifically the genre. It's one of those things with Marvel that you marvel at all the time, is how they can just so seamlessly come in and out of these different genres and realms of film, and then, take genres and twist them to create their own thing, like they did with WandaVision. And while what we're getting here is more traditional and classic Marvel content, we haven't necessarily seen them do the buddy cop film before. And the buddy cop stuff is so good. And this episode, it layers it and just levels you time and time again with that buddy cop vibe. Like, it's one of the things that has definitely been there, but you didn't just feel it as much as I guess I wanted to last week, at least on that first watch. And this week, with episode 3, you really feel the buddy cop presence. I mean, we've talked about how, the show definitely has a Lethal Weapon vibe, but this week I was even getting, like, some Bad Boys, and you go to, like, the Flash of Miami, which makes me think of Bad Boys, but even something like Miami Vice. Like, just watching these two guys, specifically when they're not suited up, man, just in regular street clothes. In this episode, there is no superhero street clothes. We maybe have some supervillain street clothes. But Bucky and Sam are undercover to a degree, and, just rocking their own stuff also to a degree. Anthony Mackie looks fantastic this episode, but it's definitely not something that would have come out of his wardrobe as Sam. But, it's fun to watch them when they're not suited up in costume, and you really get that back and forth that gave you those Lethal Weapon vibes. But considering where they are this episode, the flash and the just like lights and showmanship and dazzle, is all here in this episode, which makes you just kind of think of some of those other properties and franchises, specifically Bad Boys. I got a bunch of vibes in the back and forth, too, of what you would get with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence with these two guys. And they do some really, really fun things. And while the writing has been tremendous through all 3 episodes, what Carrie Scogland is doing from the director's standpoint, like I said, it's fascinating to watch how they're just able to go in and out of these different genres and really seamlessly and just flawlessly execute them time and time again. And what she's done with the buddy cop stuff in this episode, and specifically what she does in this episode in general, is genius. Because the thing I've been waiting for, the thing I've been wanting, the reason that I really dug this shirt the most is that Baron Zemo is front and center. And not necessarily that I'm a massive Baron Zemo fan from the comics, but I'm a massive Daniel Bruhl fan. And anytime, he's just one of those actors that anytime he pops up in anything, he's fantastic. And when he popped up in Civil War as Zemo, and they utilized him the way that they did, he just popped in a way where I was like, please don't do one of those things where it's a superhero movie and we kill the bad guy, because you want to bring him back, and you specifically wanted to see him get to that comic book character that we know, with the mask. And they didn't do away with him. They kept him in play, and I wanted him. I like when you have someone as talented as Daniel Bruhl and a villain that can be utilized as fascinating as you could utilize someone like Baron Zemo. You just want him at your disposal through most of the series. And the choices that Skoglund and Spellman make this episode allow you to keep him in play for multiple episodes, and not necessarily in the way that you might expect him to be in play. But how they've chosen to use him, at least in this episode, oh man, does Daniel Bruhl do some really, really awesome stuff. Like I said, man, he's just a really talented actor, and this role in particular, there's just something about it that makes him pop. And you can just tell that he enjoys playing this character, and because of the superior intellect and the way that he can get in your head, specifically the way he can get into the Winter Soldier's head, it's a lot of fun to watch how they use Zemo in this episode, and how they're setting up to use Zemo for the back half of the series. And while Daniel Bruhl is easily the standout this episode, at least for me, and I love the Zemo content we get, man. Like, there are moments where I was just like the most excited moments I got were all Zemo related for the most part this episode. But the stuff we get with Sam and Bucky this week is great. Like I said, that lethal weapon, that bad boys back and forth, is just so apparent all the time with their two characters. The chemistry between Mackie and Stan is just phenomenal. But like the back and forth for Bucky and Sam is really a lot of fun. And there's particularly one scene this episode where it's kind of like, let me give you a hypothetical. And as that person gives you the hypothetical, you see what the hypothetical is. But that hypothetical obviously is like the real thing, and that's something that you definitely have seen in stuff like Bad Boys, Lethal Weapon. And that whole sequence, just the way it plays out, it was just tremendous, and like really let Mackie and Stan just go and have a lot of fun. And outside of them and Bruhl, the other people that we run into this episode, pretty solid stuff. Whether it's the Flag Smashers or some other characters. But one in particular that I won't say out loud because it would technically be a spoiler. Like, we knew Daniel Bruhl was going to be in this episode based on how episode 2 ended. But there's one other character this week that pops up, and they get some serious screen time, and it's awesome. And it kind of plays into the action. And the action in this episode is fantastic. And it is that, not that superhero level action where you're seeing this big spectacular sequence take place, but it's that buddy cop, real kind of drama driven action that's hand to hand. Feels like, oh, regular people could be doing this, because not everybody in the show, pretty much from our good guys standpoint, like outside of Bucky, everybody else we see, they're just regular people until you get to the bad guys. So you get a lot of that hand-to-hand and a lot of that classic, action that you would see in movies like Lethal Weapon. And that stuff is really good. And that's the stuff that I live for. And while none of it necessarily is like peak, like for episode 3, it's just like solid action. good story, solid action. Like, I really like the way they layered it, and the stuff that we got, I was just like, yes, give me this all the time. And for me, this episode just hit all the things I was expecting from it, and I'm excited to watch it a second time because I think I'll probably take away a lot more. But this one definitely was like, if you felt like you were missing a little something last week, this episode is going to scratch that itch for you. And the only other thing I will say is, while WandaVision played with us in a way where we were trying to figure everything out, it was this big, epic kind of feeling mystery, and trying to figure everything out, and the show wanting you to try to play along and figure it out, led us into some cool, deep-cut comic book things, but it was not like front and center in your face. And I love that anytime these things can take you back to the deep-cut comics. The thing I love about this show, though, is it's like, we're not going to do that thing, because this isn't a mystery. Like, there is, a mystery that's at hand. There's a case to be following. But, like, this one is more like sit back and enjoy. And Marvel's just throwing it in your face, man. And they're throwing it in your face in the form of characters. Their deep cut stuff is going into the characters that they're layering in this show. And this episode, like, literally, anyone who doesn't seem like a regular person or has a funny name is somebody. Like, pay attention. There's two in particular this episode that come up where I was like, I just heard the name, I was like, that name's too funny to not be something from Marvel or the comics, and sure enough, it was. And then there was one other character where I was like, if they were using the character I think this might be, that would be a really and then I just love the way the show is just throwing its comic book roots in your face via the characters, and where they come from and the way that they're utilizing them. And the stuff that we get this week, I was like, that's just, like, there's one in particular, like, when you hear the name, you're like, there's no way they wrote that for this show. Like, that's too funny of a name to not be from the comic books, and naturally it is. So I'm loving the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and specifically last week, I really did undersell how good last week's episode was. Just because I wanted this week's episode last week doesn't mean that last week wasn't awesome. But this week, giving me all the stuff that I've been waiting for, and the feeling that you can get, like, especially in the action realm, like, they gave us this huge piece right at the beginning. Now they're giving us good stuff that we can kind of look and enjoy and get excited. But you can tell they're saving some big things for the end in this show, and I can't wait to see where it goes. But this one definitely scratched all those itches that I had last week, like wanting to see certain things. We get lots of it this week, and it's a lot of fun. I love when Marvel is just in this groove, that this zone that, like, is familiar and we know is just what they do the best at, and watching them doing it with these two characters, it's just really cool to see how they're building these characters that I assume we'll see show up in big moments in the movies going forward. But episode 3, The Power Broker, definitely dug it first watch through, so I can't wait to check it out the second time and then talk spoilers. But until then, it's time to find out what you're thinking, man. Keep it spoiler-free, as always, on these non-spoiler reviews. You can talk spoilers when the spoiler review comes out. But let me know what you're thinking, man. Like, what popped for you this episode? What'd you think of Daniel Bruhl? The other things that we got that, we might not be able to say out loud on the non-spoiler. How'd those play for you? Like I said, that one really, I was like, yes, give me this, and more of this, please. Let me know, like, what we were like in this episode. If this episode wasn't working for you, like, what wasn't working? What did you want more of? Did it feel like it was missing anything? I guess if it was missing anything, some more Flag Smasher stuff would have been good, to kind of build that a little bit more, but I don't think it had to go there. And the way it ends, let me know if you're like, wait, I want to know what's going on. There's a nice ending, not post-credit, before the credits. Like, there's no post-credit stuff yet. Probably won't see that till the last episode or two. But the way it ends, I was like, well, that's an intriguing place to go, and I certainly can't wait to see that. So if you're excited about what that means for next week, let me know that down below. Anything you're thinking in that comment section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you're new, you want to come hang out with the C-Man every Friday morning when we're talking the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or anytime we're just talking movies or TV. I'm finally going to dive into Kong versus or Godzilla versus Kong today. So if you want to be here for that or anything, trailer reaction wise, we've had a bunch of trailers come out recently. You want to check all that stuff out, show a little love to the old C-Man. You haven't yet, jump over there, man. Hit that subscribe button. Come join C-Maniac Nation. Hit that little bell if you want those alerts. Until next time, when we're talking spoilers on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 3. For the C-Man Cinema, sit down. I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace. Oh, hey, what's going on? You must be sticking around because you're looking for more content featuring this guy. Well, guess what? You're in the right place. You can check out more videos right here and right here. And if you have and you want to come join that C-Maniac Nation, you can hit that subscribe right over there.